how much could you spend each month if you retire at the age of 60 with $2 million in your portfolio? Well, the first thing you might do is apply a standard withdrawal rate, let's say 4%, to that $2 million. That gives you $80,000 per year. Next, you might look at Social Security. Let's assume you have $40,000 per year coming in Social Security once it starts. That's another 40 grand. Does that mean that you can spend a combined $120,000 per year throughout retirement? No, it doesn't. And there's 3 reasons for that. Number 1, Social Security has not started yet. If you retire at 60, you have at least 2 years until you start. Let's assume for an example that you're going to wait until age 67. What that means, practically speaking, is you're going to withdraw a lot more from your portfolio in those first 7 years and less from your portfolio the years after that. Number 2, we haven't accounted for taxes yet. $80,000 from an IRA and $40,000 from Social Security, even if combined that's $120,000, what does that number represent after taxes? Because that's really what you want to know, because that's what you're actually able to spend. And then finally, number 3, that 4% withdrawal rate is maybe too conservative. So how do you understand what the right withdrawal rate is to apply to this so that you can make sure you're maximizing your income throughout retirement while also making sure that your portfolio has the highest degree of probability that it's going to last for the rest of your life? So let's look at a case study financial plan to see how these principles play out in real life. Let's take a look at Donna's plan. As you can see, Donna has a bit more than $2 million in her portfolio between her rollover IRA and her 401k. And I'm first going to illustrate what if you plan for this the way I used in my example of Donna takes 4% per year from her portfolio. And you can see that illustrated here. We're just going to assume that 4% per year every year comes out of her portfolio. And Donna receives $40,000 per year in Social Security, which is about $33.40 per month. But that doesn't start until age 67. What would that actually look like for her? To show that, I'm going to go through this cash flows pages for Donna, and I'm specifically going to zoom in on her cash inflows. The cash inflows is starting by showing that 4% we're assuming that she's going to take from her portfolio. So here's where that number starts, and then what we're going to see is starting at age 67, Social Security kicks in. Now, what's the downside to doing it this way? The downside of doing it this way is Donna's actually spending less money early on because she's just living on her portfolio, and then there's a very big jump in her spending once Social Security kicks in. The problem is this is actually the opposite of what most people want to do. Most people want to spend more money early on in retirement. That's when they want to travel more. That's when they want to do more. That's when they're typically the healthiest. So let's spend money then while we can, knowing that that might taper off over time. If you just applied this 4% rule consistently and then stacked Social Security on top, what that's essentially meaning is Donna has to take a cut in the first few years relative to what she otherwise could have done had we taken a better approach. So that's the first issue with this, is it's creating uneven income streams, and these income streams don't actually align in a natural way with how most people want to spend their money. The second issue is taxes. So as we look at here, if we zoom out, this is what Donna might create in income, but that's before taxes. Here's that estimated tax payment here. Obviously, this is going to depend upon what state you live in and a few other factors, but when we look at this isn't really Donna living on $90,000 per year. Donna's actually living on closer to $79,000 per year after taxes have been taken out. Once Social Security kicks in, that tax bill will be even higher. So it's not necessarily the total inflows that we're even looking at, which is what most people do. They just say, okay, $80,000 from a portfolio, $40,000 from Social Security, I can live on $120. Right, until you factor in taxes. After taxes, the amount that we're actually spending tends to be less. And you can see what those net numbers are here in this projection for Donna. So here's a better way of looking at this. Instead of the simplistic take 4% or take 5% or whatever the withdrawal rate is that you're choosing and then stacking on other income sources later, it is best to not start with income sources, but to start with desired level of income. So for Donna, let's take a look at what if this number was $100,000 per year? What would that look like as an example? So $8,300 per month is roughly $100,000 per year. Now what we're assuming here and what we're starting with is Donna's amount that she wants to spend after taxes. The software here is going to solve for what's the gross amount, what's the pre-tax amount that needs to be taken so that after taxes are considered, we end up with $8,300 per month. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to turn this off because we're not going to define a specific withdrawal rate. What we're going to allow instead is for the plan to determine probably a greater amount to be withdrawn in the early years before Social Security kicks in, and a lesser amount to be drawn after Social Security kicks in. Still have the same amount for Donna's Social Security, still the $40,000 per year at age 67. And what we're going to see here is this is going to even out some of the cash flows. So Donna doesn't have to take any big cuts in the first few years of retirement, waiting for Social Security to kick in. What we're going to do is we're going to target a spending amount and then say, how do we fill that? How do we fill that bucket? Fully from the portfolio in the first few years, and then partially from the portfolio and partially from Social Security in the latter years. You can see that here. Here's these expenses that we're targeting. So it's a new way of approaching it. Here's those expenses. There is nothing in income the first few years. No defined withdrawal from the portfolio, no Social Security. Instead, we say, here's these expenses that Donna wants after taxes. Here's the taxes we're expecting she would need to pay in order to net these expenses. And here's the total amount that she needs to live on. This net flows says, here's the amount Donna needs to take from her portfolio each and every year to support this. Now, by the way, if you want access to the same software, you can get access in the Retirement Planning Academy. Link is in the show notes below where you can run your own projections. You can see what these numbers look like for you, but this is the number that we're paying very close attention to. And like I said, this number is going to actually decrease. This number decreases when Donna begins collecting Social Security because Social Security is lessening the pressure. It's lessening the burden on her portfolio because some of her expenses are now coming from an outside income source. Here's the practical implications, and here's the takeaway. When we look at it this way, this is going to show us the withdrawal rate for Donna's plan, and it's going to start higher. You see it reaches as high as 6.2%, but then it drops. It drops to about 4.5% after that because Social Security is now doing some of the heavy lifting. This is really important to know. If you are just looking at your portfolio and you're just looking at some of these earlier year withdrawal rates, you would look at this and say that's not sustainable, or there's a very high chance that's not sustainable. But if you can look at the big picture, if you can understand that some of these high withdrawal rates are temporary, and as soon as Social Security starts, this number is going to drop to a more sustainable rate, that's when you can have the confidence to retire on the terms that you want to retire on, as opposed to continuing to work, continuing to grow your portfolio, continuing to miss out on some of your retirement goals, all in an effort to drive these early withdrawal rates down, when if you simply have the ability to project this out a bit more, you could see that was going to happen naturally. Now, one of the things that we'd want to do for Donna is 64% might not be the probability of success that she might be looking for, but here's another important thing. This is somewhat out of the scope of what we're talking about today, but a lot of people look at this and they don't have a huge amount of confidence. This is assuming, though, that Donna's retirement spending is inflation adjusted, meaning the $100,000 per year that she wants to spend. We simply take that and adjust it for inflation for the rest of her life. The reality is that's not actually how most retirees spend. Most retirees tend to spend more up front, less in the middle years of their retirement, and then that number ticks up again as healthcare expenses kick in down the road. But on average, if inflation increases by 3% per year, the average retiree increases their spending by 2% per year. That's called the retirement spending smile, some of the research that was done on this. If we apply a 2% adjustment to spending as opposed to the full 3%, that has a dramatic impact on this here. So as you go through this, it's not just about how much money do you have and when are you retiring. It's also about understanding what's the timing of some of these income sources coming in. Are these income sources like Social Security or pension or annuity starting early, or are they starting later in retirement? How much can you withdraw in the early years? And are you not withdrawing too much then, such that it hurts your portfolio or longevity of your portfolio in the future? And then finally, what are some of the nuances around your retirement spending strategy, your tax strategy, your Social Security strategy to optimize the odds of your success over the course of your retirement? So for Donna, as simple as it seemed from the outset, you take a withdrawal rate, apply that to the portfolio, and then add on Social Security. We saw why that's not the case. Getting this plan, getting everything in order is going to give you the confidence you need to go into retirement with the right withdrawal rate, even how the withdrawal rate changes, and then also get to the point where you have a high degree of confidence in the plan that you have. Root Financial has not provided any compensation for and has not influenced the content of any testimonials and endorsements shown. Any testimonials and endorsements shown have been invited, have been shared with each individual's permission, and are not necessarily representative of the experience of other clients. To our knowledge, no other conflicts of interest exist regarding these testimonials and endorsements. Once again, I'm James Knoll, founder of Root Financial, and if you're interested in seeing how we help our clients at Root Financial get the most out of life with their money, be sure to visit us at www.rootfinancialpartners.com.